Good morning. How are you? Today is what is it? It's Valentine's Day. Saint Valentine was a priest, third century Christian, Common Era, Rome, and he ministered to persecuted Christians and was martyred. Um, Apparently, his relics are in I guess, a church somewhere in Rome. He was Roman. Um, So let's set our intentions for today's class by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Um, I think we have a few new students, so we're going to do a brief review, which we do from time to time, and it's good. It's good for me, and it's good for all of us. Those who have been meditating for a long time and a short time, it's always good to just solidify our technique and our practice. During the second meditation session, we're going to try something a little new and different. Later on, we'll do a little reading. If you have any questions regarding meditation or any of the Dharma stuff that we talk about, there's a Q&A function. You can write your question, and after the reading, we'll talk about some of these questions or whatever you want to bring up, topics. But for now, before we formally sit and start the clock, let's review the technique. So I sit cross-legged. All right, you could sit like this. You could sit more like this. This is a half, they call half lotus, or however flexible, depending on your flexibility and your ability. Also, I tend to use a cushion. It's good to get your hips at least even or above your knees. Makes it a little easier sitting for a longer period of time. If you can't sit on the floor and you need a chair, that's okay. It helps, though, if your feet are flat on the floor, if your hips are even with your knees, on the same level, and if uh, your back is straight. That's really important. You don't want to be in a chair and be you know, too lean back. The important thing is to have your back straight. So you do a chair, you could do the floor, you could do cross-legged, you do whatever. Really, you have to do what's comfortable, and you have to be in a position where you're going to be able to stay for a bit. So chair is fine. People ask sometimes, what about lying down? The problem with lying down is you tend to fall asleep. So sometimes that's not the best thing, because we don't want to be asleep. We want to meditate. So whatever your comfort position is, get into it. We also talk about the idea of taking our seat with, you can make it a little ceremonial, ritual, not in a overly serious way, but like the dignity in sitting. There's a solidity. There's an honor to it, and a dignity that you're going to take this seat to work on your own mind, to be a benefit of other people and other beings. It's a big deal. It's a big commitment, Well, that's why we set our motivation and talk about being of the benefit of all beings, male beings of happiness and the causes of happiness. That's what we're really practicing these things for, on an ultimate sense. Many of you come for different reasons, which are fine. To relax, to deal with stress, to deal with whatever kind of problems or difficulties, but from the point of view that I come from, which brought me here, which is a Buddhist point of view, it's really, the ultimate reason why we're here is for the benefit of all beings. which does include ourselves to some degree. Okay, so we take our seat. As a nobility in that too. That was the other word I'm looking for. A sanity in that too, taking the seat to commit to this practice. So the back should be straight. The back should be straight, but not rigid, not at attention, not with the shoulders rigidly back like that, but straight and relaxed. Think of the guitar string as a good metaphor. Too tight and it doesn't make a sound. Too loose and it doesn't make a sound. Just enough tension, it makes the right vibrations that you can play music. Same thing. So there's some tension, but there's some suppleness as well. Same thing with the neck. You don't want the neck so upright. You want the neck slightly, the head is slightly tilted forward, relaxed. The hands, I like to do this. So you have the open palm, the back of the hand, and curve it into almost like a heart for Valentine's Day, right? Into a circle, resting in your lap. You can rest your hands on your knees. Some people do this with the ring finger or the middle finger. Comfortable, relaxed. That's important. The mouth. So the mouth, usually the lips are kind of closed, but not tight. Relaxed. The teeth are kind of apart. The tongue should be right where the front teeth meet the roof of your mouth, resting very lightly. The gaze, Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we meditate with our eyes open, which I find really good. I find really good because it's good practice in terms of bringing the meditative qualities of awareness and mindfulness into daily life, because we live our lives with our eyes open for the most part. But whatever you're focusing on, and if you're very inspired and you have some, place to meditate with a statue or tanka pictures or pictures of the guru or pictures of people who inspire you, or a flower or a view out the window or a piece of art or a blank wall, whatever it is, that's up to you. You can rest your gaze though on whatever you're looking at, not intensely focused, not spaced out and out of focus, lightly, just kind of touching it with your eyes almost, The breath. The breath is our anchor, we always say. We start the practice once we're in the posture with the breath. The breath is through the nose, in and out, unless you can't do it. You're stuffed up, you're congested, or whatever. Then you do however you can do it. But if you can, through the nose is good. I'm giving you the technique, but we have to adapt to our bodies and our situation, So it's better to do the practice and adapting it as you see fit, whatever limitations you have physically. Even if you have to lay down, if that's the only way you can do it, that, one of you wrote in one time saying the only way, because of certain physical limitations, I can do is laying down. And that's fine if that's the only way you can do it. It's more important that you do the practice. If you can't breathe through your nose, if you have pain or certain kind of, muscular aches and you have to adjust, that's okay. We have to adapt. And we have to be relaxed and we have to be comfortable. That's important. The breath is our anchor. We breathe through the nose. Not a deep breath, not a shallow breath, but just a normal, easy breath. During the practice, you may find you want to take a big gulp of air. You can do that just to get it. So if you're feeling like you need it, but then go back to the easy breath. We focus our attention on the place where the nostrils meet the top lip. That focus and the awareness on our breath is the anchor of the practice. Because why do we need an anchor? We need an anchor because our minds, which is really what we're working with here in meditation, much more so than our body, we're working with our minds. We need an anchor because what our minds will do, as minds will do and are wont to do, is think. which is okay. I think a lot of people have the misconception that meditation, the goal of meditation is not to think. That's not really the case. And it's also a very intimidating thing that often drives people away from meditation. It did for me, at least. As when I first tried to meditate, I thought it was about not thinking, and I sat down and all I did was think. So I'm like, I'm not cut out for this. And a lot of people think they can't meditate because their mind is very busy. Everybody's mind is busy. If our minds were not busy, we wouldn't need to meditate. We'd already be, in a state of samadhi, in a state of, one-pointed concentration. But we're not. Our minds are busy. Mind has thought, and actually not one thought, train of thoughts, unceasing from beginningless time. And we're working to find the gaps within that and create space within those thoughts. It's a complete misconception that you can't meditate, that your mind is too busy, that your mind is so unique as compared to everyone else. It's not. It's the same. All minds are the same. Thoughts might be different, right? Experiences and everything, but the mind basically is all the same. Nobody's better cut out to meditate than other people. Everybody can do this. And the goal is not to stop thinking, it's to work with thoughts. So, we start breathing. We're resting our gaze. We're in our posture. We're focusing on our breath in the space between the nose and the upper lip. And now a thought comes in. A thought comes in about what I have to do as soon as this class is over. The key and the crux to this practice is just recognizing the fact that you're thinking. It's not about deciphering it or breaking down the thought or judging the thought. It's not about pushing the thought away. It's not about following the thought. It could be a delicious, seductive thought that you want to, delve into. We're not doing that. What we're just doing is recognizing that we're thinking and then going back to the breath. And our practice is really the interplay between those things. So we're in the posture. We have our gaze, relaxed gaze. We're breathing through the nose, focusing on that space. Now I'm thinking, what's the weather like outside today? What am I going to do when this class is over? Do I need a sweater? Do I need, recognize the fact that I'm thinking and back to the breath. You may go back between the thought and the breath many, many, many times in this short session we're about to do. It may take you 10 out of 11 minutes to finally become aware that you're thinking. That's how powerful that stream of thought is. This is how we've lived our lives forever. That's okay too. This is practice. It's not perfection. With that in mind, let us meditate for 9 short minutes. Because I only do even numbers because I'm crazy. Okay, let's start. Odd numbers. Sorry. Excellent. Okay. All right, we're going to do a little reading. And while we're doing the reading, if you want to use the Q&A, if there's any questions you have about meditation, about Buddhadharma, if we can answer them or we can discuss them, things you may just want to discuss, put it in the Q&A or not. We are reading from a book called Natural Great Perfection by someone named Nyosho Kempo Rinpoche. Nyosho Kempo Rinpoche is a Tibetan Buddhist Lama who passed away at a rather young age, I think in his 50s. But this book is called Natural Great Perfection. There's his photograph and his cover. I never had teachings from him, but I do know people who did, and he was a pretty remarkable Lama, a pretty remarkable teacher. When he escaped from Tibet and went to India, he was homeless for a long time and lived on the streets and went through a lot of hardship in his life, but became a very realized being, and Lama and teacher. So we're going to read from his book. If you're interested, he has several books that he published during his lifetime. We're going to talk about Buddha nature. When I've told some of you this, for the new people, this class started out as a very secular meditation class without Buddhism. I got into meditation through Buddhism. Some of you got into meditation, maybe you're not that interested in Buddhism. But what happened was we did this secular meditation class, and a lot of the students kept asking about Buddhism. So we decided to make, after the first 7 classes, we went into 102, which started to bring in Buddhist themes. But I asked my teacher before both components of the class, but before the second, I said, a lot of these people have questions about Dharma, especially karma and reincarnation, things like that are very new concepts in a lot of ways, the self, emptiness, all those things. So I asked him, I said, they have questions, they want to discuss Buddha. He said, that's okay. He said, really focus on the mind. Make that the focus. And he said, remember, Buddha is not the name of a person, it's the name of mind. Which is what draws me to Buddhism, because it's not a theistic religion. I don't even necessarily look at it as a religion. I don't really look at it as a philosophy, because it's a lot more active than a philosophy. I see it more as a science of mind. When they talk about Buddha nature, they're talking about what we're trying to work with and get to is this kind of clarity of mind. When you clear out the obscurations, our likes and dislikes, our anxieties, our neuroses, like when we get to that kind of clear place, that's our true nature of mind. That's Buddha nature. That's in every sentient being has that. Not just Buddhists. So he said, remember, Buddha is not the name of a man, it's the name of mind. So Nyosho Khenpo Rinpoche is talking about Buddha nature is the essence of awakened enlightenment itself. It is present in everyone. Its essence is forever pure, unalloyed, alloyed, like metal alloy, which is, made up of several substances. This is unalloyed and flawless. It is beyond increase or decrease, like that clear sky we're thinking of, we're using as an image. It is neither improved by remaining in nirvana nor degenerated by straying into samsara. Its fundamental essence is forever perfect, unobscured, quiescent, and unchanging. Its expressions are myriad. Those who recognize their true nature are enlightened. Those who ignore it or overlook it are deluded. There's no way to enlightenment other than by recognizing Buddha nature and achieving stability in that, which implies authentically identifying it within one's own stream of being and training in that incisive recognition through simply sustaining its continuity without alteration or fabrication. That's kind of what we're doing. Recognizing our Buddha nature, recognizing that clarity of mind and achieving some stability in that, which implies authentically identifying it within one's own stream of being. That's what we're trying to identify, and training in that incisive recognition, recognizing the thought, going back to that clear clarity of mind, recognizing that it's there. Think about that. This has nothing to do with any kind of religious philosophy or religious dogma at all. Just talking about your mind. We're not even talking about ethics and morality, which do have a big, 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 big place in Buddhism. But there's no way to enlightenment other than by recognizing Buddha nature. The ethics come into play if you're living a very unethical life and you're causing suffering to other people and stealing and lying and killing and harming, committing violence and all those things, your mind is going to be so obscured by the, the negative karma you're creating, and the the heavy thickness and attachment to this kind of impulse. You have no room to recognize clarity of mind. That's where the ethics come in too. All spiritual practices and paths converge and are included in this vital point. All spiritual practices, he's saying, not just all Buddhist practices. This recognition is the sole borderline between Buddhas and ordinary beings. Buddha actually, in Tibetan, it's Sangye, which means awakened, the literal translation of that. This is also the great crossroads at which we find ourselves every moment of our lives. The illusory history of samsara and nirvana begins here and now. It is beyond past, present, and future, like a seemingly eternal instant of timeless time. This is what we call the fourth time, timeless time beyond the three times. The three times is past, present, and future. The ineffable instant of pure, ecstatic presence, total awareness, is Rigpa. That's the word, R-I-G-P-A. Rigpa, primordial being, innate awareness, is primordially awakened, free, untrammeled, perfect, and unchanging. Yet we need to recognize it within our very own being if it is to be truly realized. Rigpa is our share or portion of the Dharmakaya. The Dharmakaya is the unborn sphere of awareness from which everything arises, the ground of all. I think in Hindu terms, they call that the Godhead. Very similar. Those who overlook it have forgotten their true original nature. Subject to suffering, karma, and confusion, we must recognize Rigpa in order to actualize our total potential, the sublime joy, peace, and freedom of enlightenment itself. The late Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who we've read from in this class, Nyosho Rinpoche was very close to Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. The late Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche said that the great yogis and enlightened adepts wanted and needed nothing more than the realization of the fundamental nature of intrinsic awareness itself. Think about those things for a while. The good news is everything we need is already here. It's just a matter of doing the work to get to it, to uncover it, to habituate it, to stabilize it. So with that in mind, let's see if there's any questions we can answer. Is it normal to feel cold during meditation? Yeah, it's normal to feel hot. It's normal to feel cold. I don't know if I can elaborate, but yeah. Just wondering if you have any specific advice for using meditation to clear the mind. I know you said that's not the point, but I suffer from intrusive thoughts a lot, and I'm hoping that meditation can help keep my head clear. Well, that's kind of what we're doing. We are clearing the mind. It is kind of the point. We're recognizing the fact that we're thinking, and then we're leaving the thought where it is, and then kind of connecting to that clarity of mind again through using the breath as an anchor, but really sitting in that clear space. That's really what we're doing. I mean, from my suggestion, and this is somebody who's a Buddhist, is practice the Eightfold Path, which is the one of the Four Noble Truths, the first teachings of the Buddha, the Eightfold Path, which is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right concentration, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness. You mentioned the sky, and the cloud sky metaphor was impermanent. No, I said the cloud is impermanent. The sky does the sky represent being? Is it impermanent? The sky represents the mind, the Buddha nature. That's what the sky represents. I was wondering about mala beads and bracelets. Mala beads are for counting. So some practices you do in Buddhism, you accumulate mantra, and there's 108, and you use these to to count. So when you get from the big one, you go around, you get to the big one that's 100 or 108. Um, some people who are accumulating lots of mantras have literal counters that they put. I don't think I have any handy here. I could show you. They're actually counters that some people do millions of mantra recitations. So that's what the mall is for. Is there a recommended place you suggest? What do they bring to me? I mean, the mala doesn't bring anything. It's the actual practice that does. And you can get these at, I think you probably get it at Garchen Buddhist Institute website. What are your thoughts on the following? Observe and act with clarity. For where there is clarity, there is no choice. And where there is choice, there is misery. But then why should I speak since I know nothing? Observe and act with clarity is easier said than done. You need a method to do that. If it was just about, this is the problem I have with philosophy and stuff, which you have had great minds who have written incredible books and have, realized a lot of true things. But I've yet to meet someone who practices a philosophy, who reads like, I don't know, Spinoza or, Heidegger or whoever, and does a daily Heidegger practice. I've never really met that. So it's, to understand something intellectually and for something intellectually to make sense really is only the first step. How do you integrate a concept into your daily life? Because, to the kind of work we're talking about and what Nyosho Rinpoche is talking about, that takes a real radical approach to the way you've lived your life. You have to kind of dismantle the ego, the way you've looked at how your mind works. It's a big practice. It's a very worthwhile one, but it's not just a matter of something making sense or something not making sense. It's a matter of practice. Please talk more about Tashi Delik. I think Tashi Delik means hello or good luck or something like that. My thoughts for the year of the ox. I don't know much about the Tibetan astrology or the years or anything. Just know it's New Year's, which is always something hopeful, right? Especially that the last year was so difficult. So let's hope this is a better year. Tashi Delik is a greeting in Tibetan. You say when you greet someone, you say, I think it means like, how are you, or good luck, or something like that. Michael, do you practice any yoga? I don't. Along with meditation or physical exercise along with meditation. No, I do meditation separately. I think it's physical exercise is good to keep your mind and body healthy, especially your body. You want to do a lot of meditation practice, it's good to have your body, fit. And just, fitness is good to stay healthy, but I don't practice any kind of traditional yoga. I mean, there's exercises in Buddhism that are called yogas, but they're not what the mainstream thinks of yogas, and they're practices that really have to be given to you by a teacher that you've taken refuge with, that's instructing you. But they're not. I've done yoga when I couldn't do other stuff that I do on a normal basis when I was away from my normal routine. Yoga is great. I think it's a great way to stay fit. A lot of people find certain spiritual path through yoga, and I'm sure there are great yoga teachers that you can, learn a lot, both spiritually, physically, mentally. They say the true nature of the mind is unobscured. So our thoughts and emotions from an obscured mind, or simply from this brain we have in this life that causes us samsara. Well, I think this is a good point, mind and brain, consciousness and brain activity, there's a very big rift in science, neuroscience. Many scientists believe that consciousness is just a function of the brain, physical. based on brain cells and things like that. Many scientists think there's something more to consciousness, that the brain only perceives consciousness and interprets consciousness and allows us access to consciousness. That's a Buddhist point of view. The brain is kind of the transmitter. Consciousness is not just a function of brain, that we just die. That's where reincarnation comes in. Consciousness is something that's eternal. So I don't look at the brain at all when I think about consciousness. I think about something much more universal and eternal. The true nature of the mind is unobscured. Thoughts and emotions are from an obscured mind. Thoughts and emotions are from karma, arise from karma that we've accumulated in this life and past lives. So the unobscured mind, which is always there, like he talked about, we just read, it's something that's, eternal. It's, I lost that page, but it's unborn, it's undying. You can't get more of it. You can't give it away. It's always there. And it's a matter of clearing away the thoughts and the obscurations to have an experience and have some stability in the nature of mind. That's the practice. Do you think meditation can solve and prevent things like anxiety and depression? I mean, I say this all the time. Anxiety and depression are, clinical things that often need professional, we all often need professional help. I do think that that's important. I think depression can be a real clinical illness that needs sometimes medication, sometimes, you need professional help. Do I think it can solve and prevent things like that? I don't know. Do I think Buddhism or Dharma practice can solve and prevent things like that? Maybe. But if you are really suffering from anxiety attacks, depression, clinical depression, I think you need to, it's always a good idea to seek out some kind of professional, some medical advice too. I'm curious about the explanation of reincarnation. This is something many people are curious about, including me. In terms of how this translates to children. Being a father myself, I'm hopeful that Buddhism will teach me how to be a better person and, in turn, an even better example to my children. However, it is often easier to talk to my children about heaven when the topic of death comes up, be it in relation to family, pets, etc. How would you suggest explaining Buddhism to children? And is there any reading material you'd recommend? That's something you have to decide. If you're more comfortable talking to your kids about heaven and you feel like it's better for them to hear that, that's up to you. I don't know offhand any books, that are for children. Buddhism. There are a bunch. Maybe go to the Shambhala Publications website and Google them and do some searches about Buddhist. They're a great, and also Lion's Roar. They're great. Not Lion. Wisdom Publications and Shambhala. Great publishers that have lots of books, and just kind of Google Buddhist books for children. I don't know offhand. This is something you really have to decide. If you feel it's easier and it's better for them to discuss, afterlife in terms of heaven, that's up to you. You have to decide that. I mean, it could be a big thing to discuss reincarnation with children, but I don't know. Maybe they're more receptive and understanding than we think. I don't know. That's really up to you, Stuart. You have to come to that conclusion. I can't steer you in any direction. How does one meditate on a specific topic such as emptiness? How does this reconcile with what we've been practicing in our meditation sessions on leaving the thought where it is? There's several ways you can meditate on emptiness. We had that class with Dr. Vesna Wallace. That was Meditation 102. I think it was session 11 or 12. Go back and look at that. She talks a lot about emptiness. A very simple way to think about emptiness is just, and think it in terms of quantum physics and science, is that, listen, we recognize ourselves and our world as things that are very solid. this book as very solid and being a book. Well, it's, if you break it down, it's a bunch of pages. If I can't read English and these letters, they mean nothing to me. These pages are made from trees and wood and something like that. They are a bunch of pieces of trees, basically. We call it a book. We give it a label and a name. Beyond pieces of trees, there are a bunch of molecules that make up this wood or pulp or whatever it's made from. And if you examine the molecules, they're atomic in nature and have electrons and neutrons and protons. And those things even break down to smaller quantum particles that are sometimes not even a particle. They're more like a wave of energy, like a radio wave or whatever, microwave or something. So what does that mean? What the hell are we? Are we waves of energy? You know, so we think of ourselves and our lives, our likes, our dislikes, our, you know, our habits, our schedules, our professions as things that are so solid and defined, but they're really only things that we give definition to. We create this identity. We solidify who we are and limit who we see ourselves are. That's a good way to meditate on emptiness. But look at Dr. Vesna Wallace's teaching, Meditation 102 session. Nick, is it 11 or 12? Nick Solidago, our fantastic bodhisattva producer who does this out of the kindness of his heart for your benefit. But that's a good class, you know, to explain emptiness. Do you ever do a walking meditation? I do. The tricky thing is formal sitting meditation practice is more important than walking, because what can easily happen is you wind up just taking a walk and not meditating. I think rather than doing walking meditation, meditate while walking, if that makes sense. So I wouldn't say I'm going to go do walking meditation. I'm going to go for a walk. And then while I'm walking, I'm going to meditate, rather than, you know, using I'm going to do my walking meditation practice, because it's really, unless you really have some kind of solid foundation in meditation and stability in that, or some kind of, you know, solidity in your practice, you're going to just take a walk, which is not meditating necessarily. Can one be affected by a loved one's karma? Absolutely. Absolutely. We also have collective karma. We have collective karma as beings on this planet. However, 9 billion of us they are. The 9 billion of us all have a collective karma of being alive on this planet at the same time. We have a karma as Americans, if you live in America. 325 million of us live in the country, the United States of America. That's a collective karma that we are part of, without a doubt. There is you, and take it smaller. You know, you have a karma. I have a karma of being a father to 3 children and a husband. That's my personal karma. That's and definitely karma affects, you know, those around us, without a doubt. In terms of suffering being avoidable occasionally, this fact brings me to an apathetic state about the world. Are there Buddhist teachings to counter an apathetic state? That's why the intention we said at the beginning of the class is, may all beings have happiness. And at the end of class, we dedicate this action to the benefit of all beings. I think it's good to think about how you can be of benefit to others, because there's an awful lot of suffering in the world. And if you can help some of that, that should, you know, take you out of the apathetic state. It's easy to get into an apathetic state if it's just about our own kind of satisfaction, our own feelings of feeling good or feeling bad or things like that. Can you recommend meditating on death? I find it really helps me find peace. You know, the Buddhist point of view about death is that there is no death. You know, and the, you know, the really realized practitioners look at death like changing clothes. They're just, you know, this is the outer vessel, and the inner consciousness is not going anywhere. So it's just the vessel that's going to change. How old were you when you got into Buddhism? I was about 31, no, 41. Why did I get into it? suffering and dissatisfaction with my life and myself. I often find myself afraid of doing things in life because I think I will fail or even die in the process. I'm talking about simple stuff like moving away or buying a house. Do you think meditation could help me? I mean, that seems like phobia, some kind of, neurosis that you may need some professional help dealing with. If your fears, if you're afraid of moving or buying a house, those are things that you may need, someone to talk through those things. Do I think meditation can help? Meditation certainly can't hurt, but I'm not going to say meditation or even Buddhadharma is a substitute for, psychological help and psychological care. I'm not going to say that. Can you speak a little more about how to rest your eyes while meditating? I want to get in the habit of having my eyes open, but it's definitely different. Yeah, you just, what might help is to have something inspiring to focus on. Like I said, I have a lot of photos of teachers and, but the Buddha, Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to Tibet, and whoever inspires you. Maybe it's, a Hindu teacher or a yoga teacher. Maybe it's a relative. I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe it's an artist. Maybe it's a photograph of a view or something that could help you. And just kind of, you can help, just by resting your eyes on that. Okay, let's go back to, we're going to do another 9 minutes and then wrap it up. At some point in the middle of this session, I'm going to talk about doing something a little bit differently. So let's get into our posture. Comfortable, relaxed, back straight, not rigid, head slightly tilted, mouth closed, teeth a little bit open, tongue behind the front teeth near where the roof of the mouth is. Eyes open, resting lightly on whatever you want to look at. And really, really kind of think about the reading and the Buddha nature and that kind of clear mind, and just, that's the sky that we're talking about. That's that mind when we leave the thought where it is. The gaps between the thought is where the Rigpa is, where that Buddha nature is, the unobscured Buddha nature. Let's focus on the breath. 9 minutes. Back to the breath. Recognize the fact that you're thinking. Go back to the breath. Recognize that you're thinking. Go back to the breath. try to connect to that clear blue sky. Stay with the breath, and I'm going to ask us to jump into something a little bit different. Stay with the breath. All I'm going to ask is let go of the technique completely and just rest in that clear blue sky, knowing that that's Buddha nature, knowing that it's there within us, knowing that it is limitless, unstained, and that's the nature of enlightenment, really. But just see if you can taste that. See if you can rest in that, just even if it's for an instant. And then the thought might come, I'm not doing it, I am doing it, it's I'm in and out, whatever. Back to the breath again. Recognize the thought, it dissipates like a cloud. And just see if you could rest in that blue clarity one more time. It's there. It really is. I mean, that's every great Lama teacher has said that and discovered it and recognized it. It's there. See if you could just let go of the technique. Just sit in that blue, sit in that clarity, sit in that nature of mind. One thing that may help if your mind feels really busy, lower your gaze, the angle of your gaze. So if your eyes are looking this way, lower it a little bit. It may calm the speed of the thoughts, and vice versa. If you find yourself getting kind of drowsy or spacey, you can raise the angle of your gaze. That might kind of like wake you up a bit. So whatever you're thinking right now, recognize it and go back to the breath. See that cloud dissolving into the sky. And now let go of the technique again and just be that blue. Rest in that. It's almost like you're absorbed in it. It's absorbing you. And relax in it. Trust that it's there. Back to the breath. Recognize the thought. Recognize the thought. Back to the breath. The thought's a cloud dissolving in the sky. And then rest in that sky. Let go of the technique. The sky's within you, it's outside of you, it is you. Rest in it. Breathe in. Back to the breath. I had a teacher who used to say, rest in that natural great peace. Rest in that natural great peace. The weary mind battered by karma for incalculable lifetimes, arriving home, resting in that natural great peace. Excellent. What time we got? Okay, we got. Let us dedicate whatever benefit we have generated through this practice today to the benefit of all beings by saying our closing dedication prayer. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Remember, the setting of intentions and the dedication, this is not metaphorical. This is not wishful thinking. This is real. This is real. This is scientific. Real. Okay? Remember that. It's really important. Thank you very much for being here today. It means way more than you can ever know. I hope to see you next week.